Hey, Ishara. It's really nice to meet you. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Ishara.
Ishara. Okay, great. It's brilliant to have you here. So, Ishara is basically head of product marketing at Vetstoria, right? Which is an online appointment software for booking vet appointments. Is that right?
That's right. Spot on,
Okay.
yeah.
Brilliant. Could you tell us a little bit more about, yourself and your company and how you broke into the field of product marketing?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, Amelia, hi, my name is Ishara Naotunna. I'm the head of product marketing at a company called Vetstoria. Before I joined Vetstoria, I was trying few, different avenues. I was in radio, advertising, hospitality,
Mm.
and when I finally broke into tech, I was doing corporate marketing. And then there I got exposed to product marketing, which was something new for me at the point and even for the company. So I think I'm one of those people who can proudly say I'm one of the first product marketers of that company that I used to work for, which is called WSO2, where I was managing an identity and access management product, super competitive space. So I was doing that for a while. And then my latest stint here is now at Vetstoria, where I'm the head of product marketing. And I think doing things like radio, where you get used to things like public speaking and managing a lot of campaigns for the companies that have been there before, and just honing skills like storytelling have actually helped with my current job as a product marketer.
Mm. So, do you get these questions like, what do you even do as a product marketer a lot?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because I mean, I think one of the challenges that companies have in general is what is a product marketing manager supposed to do?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it differs from company to company, right? And sometimes people want a product marketing manager and they're expected to work as a project manager, which isn't what
Mm.
it's supposed to be, or sometimes just function as a content marketing manager. So yeah, there's always that question of, what do you do sort of thing. But I think the very easy way to define yourself as a product marketing manager when you're a company is to say that you are sort of the mini CMO for the product,
Mm.
because you're responsible for how your company is represented in so many different ways, and also you are the advocate for it. When it comes to your product management team, you are the person who represents the customer point of view, and
Mm.
when you the customers, you represent saying this is what the product is, this is how the product is supposed to help you. So you play all those multiple roles as a product manager, and it's more of a strategic thing. And I feel like that's what it's going to become.
Mm. Right. Product manager, product marketer, right? I sometimes confuse them as well, but
Yeah.
if you could tell me a little bit more about what you actually do in your average, day or maybe week, as a head of product marketing at Vetstoria.
Yeah, sure. So what I have to do is, typically work on things like messaging and positioning.
Mm.
How is, Vestoria defined in the market space? How do we pitch, helping sales teams sort of figure out what sort of collateral they would go with, and what should those things say? What would a webinar about our product say? So understanding how we define, or how in the elevator pitch of the product sounds. That's my job. Helping with product releases, feature releases and launches, that's something that comes under me as well. I mentioned helping sales team come up with like pitches and stuff, so having the right sort of collateral and presentations and comparisons, that's helpful for them. That's something that I do as well. And also helping out with GTM, because you have the corporate team that
Mm.
works on the lead generation stuff. So then from my end, we say, hey, what if we run XYZ campaign, especially for leads that's sort of in the decision making stage, or for someone who is very close to buying. So I work with like lead gen to, run those campaigns. So those are just like a few of the things that I do. But then there's also that research component, like interviewing and understanding customers, marketing to our customers,
Mm.
and like competitive intelligence, which takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Right. Sounds like a pretty broad scope of duties. And, I have interviewed dozens of product marketers at some point in my career. And because I was trying to kind of gauge who is responsible for, product metrics such as new
Yeah.
user activation, user engagement, product adoption, like feature discovery. And in some companies, it was the product manager, and in some
Yeah.
companies, it was the product marketer. So
Yeah.
how is it in your case? Are you also responsible for these product metrics, or is it someone else?
Yes, I am. So I
Okay.
think that's a great question, Amelia, because I think one of the challenges that a product marketer would actually have is to, let everyone know what sort of impact that you're making,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what you're measuring and how it ties to revenue goals is something that is super helpful. So I try to, divide my metrics into few categories. So then you have like your product adoption specific categories. I look at those things because it helps me with customer marketing. So I try to understand, who's downloading, who's signing up with demos, which features they're adopting, what sort of content they're consuming from a decision-making point of view. Then I look at the sales enablement sort of metrics, and then figure out, what sort of, collateral is the sales team looking at. So there are all these different metrics, but, to your question directly, yeah, I do look at, what the feature adoption and those things are like, because we know that if someone signs up for a demo, if someone is adopting a feature, that means how can I push that customer into becoming a power user or something like that. So yeah, those I do look at those product adoption metrics. That's how you know that it's
Right. And
yeah.
who's responsible for like actually improving them? So if you see that new user activation is pretty low, so people are signing up and then they are not really doing, what it takes to get to the aha moment, right? Like, do you then basically design some in-app experiences, improve the onboarding yourself, or is it a remit of a product manager in your company?
So we actually have a couple of teams, one focusing on onboarding, and then once the onboarding period is done up, like so at Storia, onboarding actually happens like from a sales led point of view. So you
Okay.
have the onboarding team that takes them, because it's a very complex product.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a team that does that. And once a veterinary practice goes live, for example, then the customer success team would, take it on themselves to manage that customer. So where I would fit in is to work with those teams to see what the current flows are like. Are there people dropping off at any points? What can I do? What sort of collateral, what sort of, things can we try out to improve that? Even with customer success, they would also say, hey, it might help if we had this piece, that explained benefits at an XYZ point. 3 months later, they're not really doing anything. They just started the tool and they're not exploring more features. So then I would, do like a nurturing series or something like that together with like those teams like CS and onboarding. So I work with those teams and then see what sort of touch points we can create within product marketing to make sure the customer is on that journey with us.
Right. So are you responsible for creating these touch points, or is it the onboarding team?
I would work with them to do that.
Okay.
And, we test it with the team, and if they feel like, what, yeah, that might work, and then we implement it together.
Wow. So it sounds like you have a pretty big team and a lot of stakeholders from like different departments. There's the sales team, which is responsible for new user onboarding, right? And the customer success and the product marketing team. How do you manage it all? Like, you know,
Well, I guess sometimes what you do is you try to figure out what sort of tasks that you want to like prioritize. So how Storia, for example, works is that, you have 3 key goals that you work towards every quarter. So that's helps you to get the rest of your ducks in a row, because okay, these are the key things that I'm going to work towards. And anyway, with product marketing, you have to be a people person where you're working with like multiple teams. So you constantly try to create rapport with everyone, make sure everyone's got what they need while doing whatever you're supposed to do towards your goals. But at the same time, I think priority is key. Speaking to those teams and understanding, because you have your goals as well, right? So you try to understand even from a weekly basis, okay, I can do this. And then I have a chat with the marketing director who I report to and say, okay, these are the tasks that I want to work on. Doesn't look like I'll be able to, deliver a couple of them, and then we're like, okay, and then we'll just manage it, and we keep going like on a weekly basis. But it's all about just understanding what we want to prioritize and focus on, and then we move forward.
Gotcha. So you're the head of the product marketing team. How big is your team? And what were the challenges in building this department up?
So I actually have been in this role for about 3 months, Amelia. So I am currently building my team. So one of the early questions that I had was, how was I going to build it? If it's going to be like by function, obviously by industry won't make sense because we are focusing on one, or if we want to do it by feature, but then that's going to get too complicated. So at this point, what we want to do is just get a couple of product marketing managers that would, because I would like for them to be like generalists who understand each and every part of the role, so they can work together to take all these bits and pieces. And then the other aspects that I'm looking at would be someone like a technical writer, for example, or someone who is a content specialist who can contribute from the whole writing point. But then my key thing is to recruit like product marketing managers that would understand the entire role, because that way it's easy for them to transition to like the next level if they were focusing on like one part, like sales enablement or just GTM. I think that's narrow. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So you're still like basically building the team, right?
Yeah.
Wow, this is like, you're probably the first person I've talked to that is actually building a whole product marketing team, because presumably, this happens only if the company is mature enough to understand the needs for, as you said, separate roles for GDM, separate roles for sales enablement, right? These are, like important responsibilities, but in smaller software companies, they're usually kind of multitasked and managed by one person. So super interesting. How big is that story as entire team, if I may ask?
Yeah, so Webstore has got about 100 plus people. And the cool part about the company is early on identifying that they need some, people for product marketing. So hence there's that very keen interest in growing the product marketing team also, because the space, this is not something I really knew before I got into the industry, that it is quite a competitive one. There are acquisitions and things happening all the time in veterinary software. So we've done the good thing of identifying that this is something that, we want to focus on, and we want to expand that team. So yeah, and we keep growing. I think we have recruited at least about 100% last year. So yeah, it's been growing really fast.
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting. Like the recognition that this is needed, because product-led growth, right, is such an important, I would say, growth strategy, or acquisition channel, maybe, if you view it from that point, and that it's necessary to actually invest in people who would help the customers, right, get the product better, right? So what would you say is the biggest challenge for you as product marketing manager right now?
Well, I think one thing is, from a recruitment point of view, finding the right people is one, because the thing is, it started to become a role that is a lot in demand, but also figuring out the people that might be able to do like a few things at once and understand what product marketing is all about it's definitely a challenging task. But there are people who have the right experience, which is always a good thing. I think a challenge in general would be making sure that we know the right OKRs and metrics. Are we measuring the right stuff? So far it's been good. We're categorizing metrics in terms of like product and sales enablement and GTM and campaigns and all of those things. Those are for sure a couple of challenges. I think another one would be is there's a lot going on, so you're constantly trying to unfortunately project manage a little bit, but also do the work. And also when the team keeps growing, there's also that coaching element that will come into play. So there's like a team player / coach / manage stuff, like projects and campaigns and all those things that I'm currently doing right now. So yeah, I think those would be, for me personally, I think those are like my current challenges that I'm trying to navigate through.
Yeah, so well, I think that that's a problem for any like managerial role, right? That you need to juggle actually doing the work and doing the strategy and analyzing, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
With managing people, with recruiting people, with like, yeah, being the glue between everything, right? So it's
Yeah.
super, super challenging, and I can totally relate to that. That's all brilliant. Like, if you were, just one last thing, if you were to give one tip to someone who wants to become a product marketing manager, about breaking into this field, because ultimately this will be the topic of your presentation, what would
Yeah.
you say?
There's a lot that I can, mention, which I obviously will, talk during the presentation also. But I think one tip that I would probably give out to anyone who's aspiring to becoming a product marketing manager is invest your time in writing.
Oh, okay.
This is not so, I mean, this is obviously something, an advice that a lot of people will give for any profession, but I think especially for a product marketer, writing is going to come really in handy, because that is when you put something down on paper, then you know how clear your thought process is. And that is so important when you're trying to carve something like a messaging map, or trying to position something. So out of this, like I said, there's a lot I can tell Amelia, but I think I'll probably start with writing, because that is something that's probably one of the first things that you'll have to do when you have to put everything down on paper.
Yeah, that's also something that I've been recently thinking about, that there are a lot of kind of analytical transactional skills, like managing say ad accounts, etc., but the ability to communicate effectively in writing, right, and get your ideas across, that's like super, super important for a marketer in general, and product marketer especially, because they need to basically get the message, what the product is and how it helps, across to the potential customers, right? So yeah, thank you so much for this. It was really interesting to chat to you. I'm really looking forward to the presentation, and hopefully we will learn more from it, like how it is to run a product marketing team in a growing, and competitive field, right, in software, in a software company. Great. So we'll see your presentation on the 4th or 5th of October, Product Drive, and yeah, looking forward.
Thank you so much, Amelia. I'm excited. I can't wait for the presentation.
Cheers. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.